Okay, let's just start by turning just to warm up. So just shifting gently from leg to leg. So if you're turning to the right, you're moving into that leg. So we tend to move forwards. And so in this exercise, you're moving forwards all the time without having to step. Just feel the movement of the eyes just sweeping. So the turning is helping us settle down the body. So you feel the weight more and more on the soles of the feet. The feet are spreading on the ground. So letting the weight of the upper body sink down the spine, connect with the sacrum where it branches into the legs. So the weight of the spine and the upper body pressing on the sacrum spreads the hips apart and down into the legs. So the sacrum is like the capstone of an arch. It sort of slots into the arch of the legs. Now let's try turning and really turning right round. So you just pivot on this, on the ball of this foot, so that you can just try and get round to the side. And then as you turn back, this pivots back, and then here. So largely just to get a longer sweep. So you're sweeping like through 180 degrees with the eyes. And again, here, just relax down here. You don't want the heel coming up to make this happen. So this should be settling down into this leg. So it's the head. You want the head to be totally at the mercy of the rest of your body. So the head doesn't have a life of its own. So normally the rest of our body is at the mercy of our head. So it's our head that decides where it wants to go. So here I just set up some action in my legs and just let my head go with the flow. So here you really have to fold into this hip and really have to let go with this hip so that this twist doesn't compromise the lower back too much. So once you get into the twist, just stay there for a second or two, just to allow everything to settle. So you're still sinking down the legs, but both legs feel so different. Then back to the front, and now let's just go into this again. Yeah, just register how, you know, it just feels a little bit more open around the hips. Maybe the thighs are just hurting a bit more. So in English, we have that phrase, pull yourself together, you know, when someone's just, you know, just not quite on the ball. Pull yourself together, yeah. So when we let go, when we relax, it's like the opposite of that. So I think it was Yogananda, the sort of yogi, who said that, you know, when you're sitting and meditating, effectively your spine becomes an antenna. Your spine is transmitting and receiving messages to and from the cosmos. Yeah? So there's this sense that your spine can be swayed. Yeah? So your spine can be influenced by whatever's going on around you. So just carry on going a little bit. Just feel that. Just feel the spine being very much the center of this whirling circle. And what we'd like is for every section of that spine to have equal softness and flexibility, pliability. Okay, and now let's just stand and just feel that. So the lower spine has to be really quite strong in order to support this upper spine that can be swayed, that can move around. You know, in the, I think it's the I Ching or the Tao Te Ching, they say, you know, you're like a young tree, you know, like a sapling that is just really pliant and just blows in the breeze. Not like an old stiff tree that doesn't have much movement in its trunk. Your trunk is really flexible. So let's just try, you can do it as gently as you want, but just the secret is just to stop the head latching onto things with the eyes. So we've spent 5 minutes turning, so the eyes are no longer used to latching onto things. So you can either close your eyes, semi-close them. Just feel this sway, like there's a wind that's blowing you, and then there's a wind that blows you back, yeah? And we'd like the whole spine to have a sort of bendiness in it. So obviously where the lower spine has less of a bendiness, because it's sort of thicker. It's a bit like the handle of the whip. Yeah, so it's what makes it all difficult is the fact that our heads are so big and heavy. Yeah, so really the spine that we have isn't quite designed to have a head that is so massive. It's a bit like having a whip with an enormous ball on the end of it. Yeah. So we're using our imagination and our feeling for energy, for movement and flow. We can just let the head just go with the movement, yeah? And it's not as though we're having to do anything. It's all we're having to do is stop freezing the head out, because that's what we're normally doing in order to get a grip on the objects, on the things in our life. We bring an unnatural stillness into the head. So here we just want, everything is moving, everything is movement. So it's these sort of slow motion flows. Ooh. And then just bringing it back to some sort of riding horse. And just feeling that it's like it's still happening, but almost invisible. Yeah, so for John, You know, he always used to say that rooting to the earth through your feet is only half of it. The other half is your spine transmitting and receiving to the cosmos. Yeah. So my legs are rooting into the earth, largely so that I have a stable foundation, so that my spine can just really reach. Yeah. And it's difficult because we're not used to reaching beyond our world, beyond the world that we inhabit and interact with on a sort of manipulatory, everyday level. So this is very much having the heart and the pliability in the spine for your energy to reach beyond what I call the human universe. Yeah. You know, so nowadays we sort of, modern man prides himself on the world that he has made. Yeah. But in a way, the human universe that we inhabit is more suffocating than it's ever been, because it's harder and harder to reach beyond it. Yeah. So if you think like an old primitive man, as soon as he left his cave, he would be connecting to the stars. You know. And he would feel it, you know, he'd feel each of those planets communicating with his being through the spine, resonating with. And you can feel that that very much requires the spine to be the center rather than your space to be the center and your spine being behind that. You really need to have a spine that is in the thick of it. And when we pull this back and attend to this, that is one of our techniques for limiting ourselves. And of course, when you're limited, in a sense, you're stronger because there's less possibilities. Yeah. But we want to just really open everything up so that we can be affected by things we can't imagine. Yeah. So you're not staying within the known, you're constantly being bombarded by the unknown. Okay, now let's just try figure of eighting round the hips. So it's very similar to this exercise we started with, just turning side to side. But when you figure of eight, you're really attending to the return. You're making sure that you don't return exactly along the path that you came with. You reroute it around a circle. So there's a circle here, and I'm rerouting around it, and then there's a circle here that sends me back. Yeah. So a figure of eight is just two circles that are contiguous, and they bleed into each other. And that's just the way of it, because we've got two legs and we've got two arms. So there needs to be a circle for each, or one circle that can go both directions. And again, just trying to relax across the sacrum. And trying to keep the sacrum in the middle so that the spine is still pliant, even though we're doing something in front of the spine. The spine is still got this feeling it's in the middle. And just feel the energy rippling up and down the spine. So you have the sinking energy, which is really just your weight. So here, there's something rippling down my spine, and then here, there's something coming up the spine from the ground. So the arm brings the energy up the spine, and then here it just trickles down. So how can I release the energy that's coming up out? How can I stop holding on? And it's really that changes the route. So my spine has to be able to whip, to flick the way a whip cracks energy out of the end of it. So here, and something is released upwards beyond my territory. And then when the hand comes down, it's not just your own energy trickling down your spine, it's you've brought some in from outside, you've brought a message in because you've released one and made space for it. So here, whoa, something goes, and then here when I come down, I'm bringing something other than my own energy down. So we're communicating, we're transferring energy with the heavens, the same way the feet are doing it with the ground. It's very, very good. It just mirrors, the upper body and the lower body just mirror each other. So up and down. To get into that communicative process, it just requires a heart. So the heart needs to be quite big and expansive. And that's what we've lost. That's what modern man doesn't have. He doesn't have a heart. He's got a brain and a groin. So something comes and it gets thrown out. So this, you can do this as gently as you like. So it could be really, and in a sense, the smaller your movements are, the more you can get the higher frequencies going. Yeah. Because in a sense, this movement I'm doing with my hand is just like the fundamental harmonic, and there's all these higher frequencies shimmering away. Wow. And then we just want to feel the quality of the mind, the heart mind, that encourages all this to happen. It doesn't just allow it, it encourages it. So I need a real sort of almost hopeful, yeah? I produce this energy that allows this to transpire, because, you know, we so, you know, what mood do I need to allow the spirit energy to lift against the heavy physical? And it's like a sort of optimism that's very much against the sort of the pessimism that's sort of built into our lives nowadays. And that's, the pessimism is all sort of stored here in the solar plexus. So if we can just sort of let that go, then the heart and the dantian will want to separate. And it's scary because it feels like, you know, if you just let them open up a tiny bit more, that would be it, you'd die, yeah, because your spirit would just fly up and your body would fall to the floor. And it won't happen until you need it to happen. Wow. And let's just bring it back. Yeah. So it's riding horse. What's for me beautiful about it is that it's like a paradox, yeah. Because in one sense, I'm the container, but in another sense, I'm the contained. Yeah. So the container will sort of try and stop everything from bursting out, and that will tend to bring the spine back a little bit. Yeah. And then the contained is always trying to burst the container. And if the container is strong, then the contained will just have to go up and down because it can't spread out. Yeah. So I'm both of those all the time. And when you're standing and riding horse, it's almost schizophrenic, you know, because you just need two minds that can attend to those two aspects, the containment and what's within the container, the contained. The contained doesn't want to be contained, it wants to burst its banks. And each requires a different posture. So in a sense, your posture is sort of shimmering. It's slipping in and out of these two all the time. Okay. So now let's just go around the feet again with the figure of 8, but this time just as we go around this foot, I just bring the heel up. Yeah? Because remember, the energy that's going down your body will go down through the heel, and the energy that's coming up your body will come up from the front of the foot. So it's like here we're getting like a ripple of energy flowing up the spine. And so I just lift the heel up so that my leg can give a pulse of energy. Yes, and my heel here has come off the ground and then it goes back down, and then this heel. So it's tricky because you're bringing the heel up as you're bringing the weight into that foot. Yeah. So it's a bit like the opposite of the one we did to start with, where we were twisting the foot and bringing the heel off the ground. That was the empty leg that was being pulled up. This is the full leg. So as I fill this leg, I just bring the heel up to get energy coming up against the filling or through the filling. Yeah, so here you just have to be careful that the lifting the heel doesn't stick your bum out. Yeah. So heaviness goes into the heel, lightness comes from the ball of the foot, from the bubbling well, basically. So the earth energy comes up the bubbling well, up the inside of your legs and into your kidneys. Yes, it's the kidney meridian, traditionally, specifically. Wow. Okay, now let's just try. So just coming off the heels. So just lift the heels slightly. And just feel that it becomes charged because your balance is sort of more difficult to hold. So you have to really wake up. So you can't have a wandering mind when you're standing on your toes. Otherwise you'd fall over. You're just standing on the toes and let the knees really lift like this. Yeah? Again, trying to let the spine settle down through that lift and trying to feel yourself as this fountain that's coming up and expressing out of the head and the shoulders and the arms. And then just rock back. Okay, now let's just turn it a little bit again, just to loosen the legs a bit. Feel the sacroiliacs, the 2 points where your legs join your sacrum. Let the back hand reach back to the sacrum and pluck energy from it. So I always think of the sower, you know, the guy sowing seeds. Imagine the bag of seeds is at your back over your sacrum. Your back hand dips into the bag and then brings the seeds round and casts them out in front of you. So when we're yielding, we are receiving messages. And when we attack, we are transmitting messages. So here we're concentrating on the attack. We're concentrating on digging deep inside ourselves and just casting some of our energy out. Yeah, so in the same way, if you want to attack, the attack will be much more effective if you've yielded first. But it works the other way around as well. Yeah? If you're in giving mode and your spine is proud and upright because you're giving of your energy, then it's that much easier to dig deep inside. So as you go into the sacrum, it's almost as though you're going down into the ground through your legs. Okay, and now let's just come back on off the heels. So it really is lifting the knees. Yeah? So just let the knees lift and settle down into your posture with the sacrum in this middle position rather than back. And we'll just rock back, and now let's just turn it a little bit again. And then just back to riding horse. So just feel the sinking energy. So the sinking energy is just slow. It doesn't really want to move. It just wants to go down. Yeah? Slow and lumbering. A little bit stupid. And now just come off the heels and just feel the rising energy. So that's like the complete opposite. All the qualities that the sinking energy has. The rising energy has the opposite qualities. It's bright, it's light, it's really clever. And it's really inquisitive and really active. Yeah? So it's wanting to wake up more and more and more, whereas the sinking energy is wanting to fall asleep. Yeah? So here we are containing both. And then just rock back and just let yourself root. You earth through the heels. It's like all that fizzy brightness that comes from the front of the foot drains away and you're back into normal, stupid mode. And then turn a bit. Yeah, so just feel, as soon as you start turning, some of that brightness comes back in. There's a lift. So you need that rising, lifting energy in order to move. Yeah? It's as though the weight just needs to disconnect from the ground a little bit so that it can shift around. And then just bring it back to stillness. Again, just feel the heels just driving into the ground. Keep this central, don't let it drift back. And then just push this forwards until you come off the heels. And just slowly just start your mood changing into this bright. It's what I would call the mood of the hunter, who has to be really, really vigilant and ready and awake and alert. But he can't afford to be too visible, so he will naturally crouch, but he'll crouch into a standing on the toes type posture, because that will bring his energy up. And then just settle back onto the heels and just feel that drain down, and then just turning a few times. Yeah, so with my students, we do a lot of exercises where we lean. We lean on each other. So one person is supporting and one person is trusting. And the better the supporter can be, the more the truster can trust. But it works the other way. If the truster can bring himself to trust just a little bit more than feels judicious, then the supporter is stimulated to become a better support. And what's interesting about it is that without exception, people don't mind being the support, but they don't like trusting. Yeah. So they'd much rather be the one that's doing all the work, supporting this heavy body, than to be the one that's just relaxing and reclining into this other person. So I'm always having to tell them, look, just let go. And letting go and trusting. If you're leaning on someone who's supporting you, if you just let go, then you don't come into your own true weight. You only come into your own true weight when you fight the person a little bit, when you push against them. So there's like a little sort of hurdle that needs to be leapt over, and we do that by just letting some energy out, just letting the spirit really engage. It's the same with everything. So you need to inject just a little bit of enthusiasm and spirit to get over the natural inertia that is in any system and get the components vibrating together. Okay, now let's come back into riding horse. And again, just coming onto the toes, so just lifting the heels. And now just turn, but with the heels off the ground. Yeah? So your heels are up, so it's difficult. It's funny, because you feel yourself falling and wobbling. So the heels are still off the ground. Ooh. It's always threatened to sort of do this. Yeah? So you're having to just really feel the sacrum and just let it be heavy, even though it's full of this rising energy that's coming from the front of the foot. now let's just rock back, and it's almost like a real relief, you know, to get back onto your heels. Okay, let's just try some of the heart qigong. So just bringing the hands in, and then again, just get the sacrum underneath this, and just let the arms lift and shower down. So really, as you really reach up on the component after this, just really let the upper back just straighten out. Ooh. Yeah, so it's like there's a young you inside that's just trying to wriggle out. You know, as we get older, we can't do the things we used to. But at heart, we're just kids. We never really grow up. You know? And so here there's this sense that, oh, there's this child inside that's just trying to wriggle out of this geriatric body. Yeah. So So one of the students in the center, I remember him once saying to me, you remember when you were a kid, Steve, and you just couldn't wait to grow up? I says, yeah. He says, well, I'm still waiting. Yeah, so this is, and that's the poignant thing about growing old. It's like the time of childhood becomes your main memory, because it's your long-term memory that gets stronger and your short-term memory goes. So you find yourself remembering things that you hadn't really recalled previously. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah. So you are wriggling fresh and new out of this old skin, but the old skin is wriggling down. So there is a feeling of something sinking as I reach up. And that's just the skin that I leave crumpled up on the floor around me. So breathing in, breathing out here, and then breathing in and breathing out. Yeah. Breathing in and then out, and breathing in and out. So 1, 2, and 1. And 1 more. And now let's just try some of this one. Big in breath, big out breath, long out breath. So just see if you can just get the arms. So you just keep the diaphragm relaxed and just let the arms squeeze the air out and let the arms suck the air in. So you have to keep the airways open. Don't block it with your throat. And then the breathing becomes really connected to the heart rather than the diaphragm. So here, as I suck the air in with my arms, my heart is really expanding. And then here the heart is, so the heart is breathing, not just beating. It's difficult to feel it because we're so used to the air gushing in and out from our strong diaphragms. So this sort of breathing is much lighter and it almost feels like you're not breathing. You only realize you are because you stay alive. Chest expanding, back is contracting. Chest contracts, back is expanding, shoulder blades really moving apart. This is bringing the air in, and this is expelling the air. Okay, and now let's just bring it back to attention. So just feel the heels. The heels are driving down. Imagine you're standing on the wet sand and your heels just sink into the sand a lot more than the front of the foot. Yeah, so the Achilles tendons are stretching. And then without coming into the front of the foot, just feel the front of the foot, so the ball of the foot and the toes. So they're like they're active all the time. They're sort of doing this, they're massaging or kneading the ground. Yeah. So you've got the very still and stable heels that are just injecting down, and you've got the toes that are constantly moving around and wriggling and just sort of digging into the ground, trying to get a real purchase. And they're two different energies, yeah. So I'm just allowing my weight to settle down through the heels, but I'm always trying to wriggle some energy up in the opposite direction to fill me with like this sort of light, very active spirit. Yeah, so when we were in Blakeney, John, he was always working the fingers, always like doing figures of eights with his fingers. Yeah, but we want the same thing with the toes. Yeah, so you can practice it, any time, when you're sitting down, just make sure the toes are just got some sort of life in them. When you're lying down, obviously. Yeah, so we're still, ostensibly we're a statue, but we're also possessed by this wriggly type of movement, yeah? In the feet, in the muscles, in the face, in the insides, in the gut, yeah? And it's there anyway, think of all the movement that's going on inside because of our metabolistic processes. So it's just bringing the energy of that to the fore. So you seem to be still, but you're moving. And then when you're doing the Tai Chi, you seem to be moving, but you're still. Okay, great. So let's leave it there.